Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 29. Changing one's point of view. Chen Xing simmered a concentrated bowl of ma fei soup and wanted to pry Che Lufeng's teeth open for him to consume it. However, Che Lufeng's face was ghastly pale. After suffering such grievous injuries in the mountains and forests in the north, he had staked it all on his last breath to make it back here, and it had already exhausted almost all of his strength. Without saying another word, Xiang Shu took the bowl, raised his head, held the soup in his mouth, then bowed down and fed it to Che Lufeng. Chen Xing grasped a bent sewing needle as he came out and got Xiang Shu to wash his hands with hot wine and assist him by his side. He murmured, "It's fortunate that his companion covered his stomach with a bowl to contain his stray intestines. Otherwise, if they had broken, then he can't be saved even if he was an immortal. Move the lights and mirrors all over here." His subordinates had already driven away everyone else who wasn't involved. Chen Xing first cleaned up the unconscious Che Lufeng's wounds with hot wine, then removed the pus, blood, and filth. More and more blood was streaming out. Che Lufeng's body was gradually turning ice cold. Chen Xing got two of the subordinate Ruren lads to press down on acupoints to staunch blood flow, then he inserted needles and stopped Che Lufeng's bleeding. "You have saved people who suffered from this sort of injury before," Xiang Shu said as he saw how familiar, skillful, and quick Chen Xing was with his treatment. "Never," Chen Xing answered, "I've only stitched bears up before." "Xiang Shu," Chen Xing said, "I was just kidding, don't be so nervous." Chen Xing and Xiang Shu's hands were both trembling a little, because Che Lufeng was really bleeding too much, so much so that the cotton and gauze wrapped around him would get soaked through soon. Xiang Shu's voice was extremely unstable. "What about the medicine you fed me before?" "I don't have any left," Chen Xing calmly answered, "that was the last one from the exorcism department." Xiang Shu took a deep breath. Chen Xing said, "Don't be nervous." Chen Xing could sense that this young man called Che Lufeng was extremely important to Xiang Shu. Chen Xing was confident in treating his injuries but couldn't do anything about his bleeding. He was just afraid that Che Lufeng would die from blood loss before he could sew up his abdomen. But he didn't dare tell Xiang Shu this. He really wasn't sure if he could save Che Lufeng or not. He could only say that 70% of it depended on his medical skills, while the remaining 30% depended on this person's desire to live. Che Lufeng's face was pale, and his eyes were squeezed tight, as if he had sunken into an endless dream. He looked to be around the same age as Xiang Shu, and he had the characteristic features of the Ruren people: thin lips, long eyelashes, high cheekbones and distinct facial features that gave him an air of stubbornness. He looked just like what Chen Xing had seen on portraits before the appearance of a Ruren cavalry member who wore helmets. His arms, shoulders, and back were all very sturdy, while he had long legs and a strong waist, so one could tell that he was a martial arts practitioner. Chen Xing could only hope that he would be able to make it through by relying on his constitution. Chen Xing sewed up half of his abdomen first before leaning over to listen to his heartbeat, which was very slow. Chen Xing took a deep breath. He lit up the heart lamp in his palm and pressed it against Che Lufeng's chest. He whispered, "Che Lufeng, your Enda is waiting for you to wake up. You must make it through no matter what." Xiang Shu's breathing grew rapid. His voice trembled as he said, "Che Lufeng. Live. You promised me before, you promised Shulakong." After the light from Chen Xing's heart lamp was injected into Che Lufeng's heart, his heartbeat became a little more stable. However, he was bleeding even more now, so Chen Xing had to sew him up right away. How much longer? Xiang Shu could feel that Che Lufeng wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. More and more blood was gushing out, and it had already drenched their clothes. Soon, Chen Xing's hands that he was using to stitch up the wound kept trembling. After stuffing the intestines back, his viscera will return to their original places and grow properly by themselves. Be careful not to make any knots. The two worked together to restore Che Lufeng's abdomen to its original state. Chen Xing inserted all of the silver needles into Che Lufeng's acupoints and used injection techniques into the arm to staunch the bleeding that really made Chen Xing exert everything he had learned throughout his life. This moment was truly a pinnacle for Chen Xing's medical career ever since he started learning from his master. The last stitch was made. Bandages were wrapped, and medicine was applied. The bodies and hands of the two were already covered in blood. "Ginseng soup, hurry!" Chen Xing ordered. After which, Xiang Shu followed his command and poured the ginseng soup that had been prepared for Che Lufeng to keep him alive into his mouth. Chen Xing applied anti-inflammatory herbs and ointments to stop the bleeding and promote muscle growth to Che Lufeng, regardless of his current situation. "Who?" Chen Xing was utterly exhausted. He said, "We're done." Xiang Shu hugged Che Lufeng, who was in his arms. His face was still ghastly pale, and he breathed a slight sigh of relief. Hopefully, he'll be able to wake up. Chen Xing listened to Che Lufeng's heartbeat, then tested for his breath. It was weak, yet extremely stable. He went out to wash off the blood covering his entire body. Only then did he realize that the stars had flooded the sky. It was already midnight. Xiang Shu dismissed his subordinates to go and rest. Everyone had already busied themselves for a whole 12 hours. Xiang Shu's next worry turned into whether Che Lufeng would be able to wake up or not. That night, Chen Xing simply ate a bit, washed off the blood on his body, changed into a new set of clothes, and took over from Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu soon tidied himself up and began keeping vigil. "Go and rest." Xiang Shu half embraced Che Lufeng as he said. Chen Xing said, "Just raise his upper body a little higher." Yet Xiang Shu insisted on sitting on the blanket himself. He held Che Lufeng's upper body and covered him with a blanket. Chen Xing didn't say much either. He was thoroughly spent and fell sound asleep. After he woke up, Che Lufeng wasn't awake yet, but Xiang Shu held him like that for an entire night. The next day, the great Chanyu had his doors closed and declined to meet any guests. The sun rose and set, Che Lufeng still didn't wake up. One day and night passed just like that. At midnight the next day, Chen Xing could sense that something was a little off with Xiang Shu. He went forward, knelt down at one side and listened to Che Lufeng's heartbeat, then tested his breathing. Xiang Shu's gaze seemed a little dazed. He glanced at Chen Xing. From the looks of this situation, Chen Xing was afraid that if the worst outcome eventually happened, Che Lufeng wouldn't be waking up anytime soon. "It's okay," Xiang Shu whispered, "there's no need to comfort me." Chen Xing said, "When I was a child, my father told me that everyone's life when they are born, when they start talking, the first time they come to like someone, when they start a family, marry, have children, and bid farewell to their parents, and even when they leave this world have all been predestined. It's just that we don't know anything about it, so we don't believe in those who talk about fate. Do you believe it?" Xiang Shu's voice now seemed to contain a lot more warmth. He extended a hand and gently placed it on Che Lufeng's forehead. Chen Xing kept silent, then sighed at last. Although he had never met Che Lufeng before, he couldn't help but envy him a little. If now was really the time when his life comes to an end, he still had his best brother, Xiang Shu, accompanying him. Chen Xing just didn't know who would accompany him by his side on the day he dies 3 years in the future. Seriously speaking, Chen Xing couldn't really say if he believed it or not. Ever since his Shifu told him that he wouldn't be able to live past the age of 20, he would often bank his hopes on what-ifs. He had always thought, what if he was wrong? Although his Shifu had never deceived him, and he had hardly ever made any mistakes when it came to his predictions of anything, Chen Xing always thought, "I'm living so well right now, so it can't be that once I turn 20, I'll just die like that, right? Don't tell me that while walking on the road, a rock will fall from the sky and smash me to death?" So Chen Xing always paced back and forth between the conflict of believing and not believing. On the one hand, he felt like he had little time left, while on the other hand, he secretly had the intention to challenge the heavens. If worst comes to worst, on the day I turn 20, I'll find a place where no one's around to hide in. Within a vast plain that stretches for 10,000 miles, I'll put a pot on my head, make full preparations, and wait there from the moment the sun rises until the sun sets. Once I manage to get through that, wouldn't everything be fine then? Just as Chen Xing's mind was bogged down with all these thoughts, and he wanted to get up to leave, Xiang Shu said, "Don't go, keep me company for a while ba." Chen Xing was extremely heavy-hearted and could only sit back down. He understood that Xiang Shu needed someone to accompany him right now. "Thank you," Xiang Shu said. Chen Xing dismissed it with a laugh. He thought, "You didn't say thank you when I saved you from Xiangyang City's death prison, yet you're thanking me for Che Lufeng's life. That really is rare." "Doctors should have a benevolent heart," Chen Xing answered, "it's my duty." "Che Lufeng grew up with me," Xiang Shu said, "I'm an only child. My mother only gave birth to me, and she later died of illness. My father never had another heir for many years after that. When I was a child, I often envied the brothers in other tile families." Che Lufeng was sent to Chi Le Chuan when he was 4 to act as a hostage from the Ruran side, in order for us to lend the Ruran some troops to save their people in the destroyed country Dai. Che Lufeng said, "I don't have brothers, so he'll be my brother. When I was 7, I left Chi Le Chuan and chased a wounded stag to the north, then got besieged by a pack of wolves. After being trapped in the wasteland for 3 days and 3 nights, my tribesmen all thought I was dead. Only Che Lufeng took his guards with him and searched the entire wasteland just to find my whereabouts. If we're alive, we must see each other, if we're dead, we must see the other's corpse." Xiang Shu was immersed in his memories as he murmured, "We had that arrangement since our childhood. As Andas, if one dies, then the other will definitely take revenge for him. You Han have something called sworn brothers, and I think it should be the same for you guys as well." Xiang Shu glanced at Chen Xing. Chen Xing was a little sad. He tried to smile and said, "Actually, I envy you a lot." Xiang Shu didn't know about how Yuan Xin had personally hung Chen Xing's father. He nodded and said, "When I was 10, the Ruran people finally returned to beyond the Great Walls, but Che Lufeng would come back every year to see me. It was like that every year, until that period when my father fell gravely ill. After I took over as the Great Chanyu, all the tribes were at loggerheads with one another. It was Che Lufeng who led the Ruran people to stand on my side and assist me. When I first took office as the Great Chanyu, I really didn't have the energy to continue taking care of my father. It was Che Lufeng who treated my father as his own and stayed by his bedside to wait upon him, so I had the free time and energy to take care of the stray hus." Xiang Shu said, "This kid used to pester me about bringing him to the south to play in the place where the Hans live. He heard that the Central Plains was a very prosperous place. I really didn't have the time to spare, so I kept dragging it on and on. If I had known this would happen. He'll get better." Chen Xing comforted. Xiang Shu nodded. "You're much better than me," Chen Xing continued, "my sworn brother, forget it, that doesn't need to be mentioned." Xiang Shu. Chen Xing didn't really know how to comfort others and only knew how to use the simple and crude way of saying, "I'm worse off than you, see? So you aren't in that bad of a situation in comparison. You're a very good Han," Xiang Shu said seriously, "you have a good temper and a good heart. In the beginning, I always regarded your tolerance as cowardice, but looking at you now, you're really not like that." Chen Xing said somewhat wearily, "It's only because there are a lot of things before me now that I have to let go of grievances for now. I have more important things to do." Xiang Shu sighed again and said, "But I still don't understand why you'd be willing to be an exorcist. The heart lamp is in me, do I have any other choice?" Chen Xing laughed bitterly and helplessly. "Xiang Shu, what if you had a choice?" Chen Xing fell silent. After a long while, he said, "I'll still be one ba. Perhaps that's why the heavens chose me instead of someone else." Sleep for a while, Xiang Shu, you haven't slept for a whole 2 days and 2 whole nights. Chen Xing let out a prolonged breath, then got up and left the tent. Xiang Shu nodded but didn't move. He still held onto his anda and never let go. The marble white color of the dawn sky could be seen in the horizon. Chen Xing breathed in the cold air of Sibei and stopped walking. Xiang Shu had said a lot today, which made Chen Xing feel like he had seen a different side of him. In his heart, he also had people he cared about, and he also had affection for his family. Just like how Xiang Shu had said, looking at you now, you're really not like that, their impressions of each other had changed as well. We should have talked like that a long time ago, Chen Xing thought. In the beginning, he naively believed that after meeting his destined protector, they would entrust themselves to each other without any hesitation, share life and death together, and trust each other. But what made him greatly disappointed along his journey was that it wasn't as easy as he had imagined for people to trust one another. What's more, Xiang Shu is a Hu, while he's a Han. It would be even more difficult for them both to identify with each other. But no matter what, this was a good start. Chen Xing squatted down by the stream and washed his face with the ice-cold water. Now he just hoped that Che Lufeng would be able to wake up as soon as possible, or at least not have his condition deteriorate. Otherwise. Right at that moment, he heard Xiang Shu shout madly from within the tent. Chen Xing almost fell into the stream. He immediately turned around and rushed back into the royal tent, shouting, "What's wrong?" Xiang Shu embraced Che Lufeng and couldn't stop trembling. He had his head buried in his body, raised his head, and with tears pooling in his eyes, he gazed at Chen Xing. Che Lufeng opened his eyes and his lips moved slightly. He said something softly, while his eyes were blank. "This is great." Chen Xing felt his nose sour upon seeing this as well. "This is great. You finally woke up." Xiang Shu wanted to cry, but laughed instead. This was Chen Xing's first time seeing him lose himself like this. The three of them started laughing, as if they were a bunch of fools. Che Lufeng awoke. This news spread like wildfire on the day itself. The Ruran people flocked over in droves and kowtowed to thank Xiang Shu and Chen Xing for Che Lufeng's recovery. They even delivered a lot of gifts over that filled the entire tent. Chen Xing ate the fried sazi and jerky that was sent over. With gold and silver jewelry hanging all over his body, he drank a cup of milk tea and looked just like a local wealthy landlord as he continued treating patients. Meanwhile, Xiang Shu was so tired he knocked out in the tent and slept for a whole day and night. Che Lufeng stayed in Xiang Shu's tent temporarily, so that it would be convenient for Chen Xing to take care of him at any time. This Ruran heir could barely speak the Han language in a strange manner and was a very cheerful and active man. From time to time, after saying a few words, he would start laughing by himself with ha ha ha's. After Che Lufeng regained consciousness, Xiang Shu resumed his reserved expression. Even in front of his sworn brother, he was as mild as ever and always appeared like he couldn't stand him. From the looks of it, that guy's like that to everyone. Chen Xing thought cheerfully, so I'm not the only one he can't stand. That wolf rushed over. Che Lufeng began describing the day he encountered danger to Chen Xing, and like it was kneading dough, it began kneading me over and over, then wrapped me up like a dumpling. Ha 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 ha! Chen Xing almost choked on his milk tea. Che Lufeng's analogy was rather strange, and he corrected, "You can't say it like that." Che Lufeng said, "If it wasn't because I was scratched by the wolf before I was ambushed by the Akales, this small injury wouldn't be much." Chen Xing said, "Why did the Akales ambush you?" Che Lufeng said nonchalantly, "Ruran fought with them over the river water. They killed the strongest warrior under my command, then we killed their tribe leader's son, that bastard." "Are you sure it was them?" Xiang Shu said coldly. "Who else could it be aside from them?" Che Lufeng replied. Xiang Shu reprimanded him in the Ruran language, so Che Lufeng didn't speak any further. Chen Xing didn't understand, but he roughly knew that it was along the lines of, "If you didn't see it for yourself, then don't jump to conclusions so rashly. On the prairie, it was common to see murders, robberies, and even fights occur merely because of a minor disagreement or because one party couldn't stand the sight of the other. To the north of the Yin Mountains, massacres became even more unbridled. There were many hunters who, as soon as they felt like something was amiss, would rather strike the first fatal blow to prevent themselves from landing in a predicament due to carelessness. Che Lufeng couldn't tell the origins of the people who ambushed him. He had been wounded by a wolf by then after all, and after staggering to a bush, he was on the verge of losing consciousness. Right after the other party attacked him, his Ruran subordinates rushed over to rescue him, so his enemies could only retreat. They didn't see who his attackers were and couldn't discern their weapons either. After several rounds of deductions, even Xiang Shu couldn't figure out who were the ones who hurt Che Lufeng, so he could only keep it in mind for now and slowly investigate it in the future. He chided this anda of his who feared nothing in heaven or earth again and asked him not to do such dangerous things so recklessly again. These days, Che Lufeng would come over before dawn and wake Xiang Shu up, then get Chen Xing to change his dressing. After which, he would stay in the tent without any care for courtesy, and during the occasional times when he came before Xiang Shu woke up, he would even burrow under his blanket and sleep with him. But Xiang Shu would just look irritated as he pulled him out and kicked him aside. In the day, Che Lufeng wouldn't lose any of his energy. Every other minute, he would have to go disturb Xiang Shu if he wasn't playing tricks on him, then he would be pestering him to talk. Chen Xing thought, "You're being way more arrogant than me. Luckily you're his anda, so you don't need to be afraid of dying. If I were the one doing all that, I would definitely be strangled by Xiang Shu to death in an instant. Look at Sholokong, isn't he beautiful?" Che Lufeng asked as he studied Xiang Shu while Xiang Shu was taking an afternoon nap, as if he were showing off a possession of his. He said to Chen Xing, "I think he's like Wang Zhejian." "He is really beautiful." Chen Xing's mouth twitched as he agreed with Che Lufeng's praise of Xiang Shu's beauty, but what's the deal with Wang Zhejian? Have you met Wang Zhejian before? Che Lufeng said, "Legend has it that Wang Zhejian is the most beautiful woman in the world, right? People who live beyond the Great Wall never really had much of a conception of the appearance of those who lived in the Central Plains, and only knew of the legend of the procession of Zhejian. It was also rumored that Zhejian, who once married the great Chanyuhuanyi, was the world's most beautiful woman. Even wild geese passing by would land on the grassland for the sake of seeing her beautiful face." Che Lufeng said, "The great Chanyuhuanyi married the most beautiful woman in the world, while the great Chanyu Sholokong Ma, what should he do about his marriage? Don't you think he can only be given away in marriage?" Chen Xing said, "He's not asleep, he heard you." Xiang Shu. Chen Xing scrutinized Xiang Shu for a while and thought, in conformance with Fujian's male marriage decree, if this guy wasn't a rabid dog who only has a beautiful face, I would be very willing to marry you. But if I were to marry you and take you back home, I would probably get beaten every day and worry about my life all the time. However, he didn't know why, but Chen Xing could vaguely sense that Che Lufeng's feelings towards Xiang Shu was a bit strange at times. Xiang Shu had woken up, so Chen Xing asked Che Lufeng, "After you fought the Akales, would they still come to Chi Le Chuan?" Che Lufeng was instantly vigilant. "Why are you looking for them?" Chen Xing felt apprehensive. He looked at Xiang Shu. He remembered that the Akales people was one of northern nomadic tribes in the ancient covenant. In just a few days, they would return from the north and spend the winter under Chi Le Chuan. He just didn't know if their enmity with the Ruran this time would lead to their dissatisfaction with Xiang Shu again. Xiang Shu knew what Chen Xing was thinking about and said, "Don't worry. If they stand against the great Chanyu, it would mean that they're standing against the ancient Chi Le covenant." Chen Xing gradually felt more relieved. The weather was getting colder and colder by the day, but the first snow after autumn's arrival never came. Every morning, the grassland would be covered in a layer of frost. Until the agreed-upon date of October 3, there were still no news from the legendary Akales tribe. It would be the autumn close festival on the grassland on the 15th of October. Chen Xing went around inquiring about this tribe that was active in the north and learned that the Akales was a branch of Shiwei, and they had nearly 3,000 people in the entire tribe. They were active farther north, which even included the North Sea area. "They'll come," Xiang Shu said nonchalantly, "otherwise once the snow comes, they'll freeze to death in the north." "Shulakong," Che Lufeng smiled, "when will you take me to the place where the Hans live?" Chen Xing was in the middle of changing Che Lufeng's dressing, while Che Lufeng was sticking together a great Chanyu feather crown for Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu didn't reply to him. Che Lufeng hooked Chen Xing's chin with his finger and said, "I heard that there are a lot of places to play in your central plains." Chen Xing patted Che Lufeng's hand away and said, "Another one who wants to enter and rule the central plains? Unfortunately, the north doesn't belong to us now. Feel free to fight with Fujian for it." Che Lufeng smiled again, "If I were to bring troops into the pass and go to war with Fujian and become a Ruran emperor, will you help me, Chen Xing?" Xiang Shu harshly reprimanded Che Lufeng in the Ruran language, yet Chen Xing said seriously, "Everyone thinks that there's a large area of land owned by no one in the central plains, and that it would belong to whoever who's good at fighting. Have you guys ever thought about how everyone would think if the Hans were to come in trampling all over your homeland and robbing your property?" Che Lufeng said with a smile, "It was just a joke. If the great Chanyu doesn't agree, the Chi Le covenant won't head south." Almost all of the patients within the area have been seen as they came in one after another. Within 1 month, Chen Xing had treated thousands of patients, and he had to see almost 200 people per day. His reputation as a divine doctor had already spread throughout the entire Chi Le Chuan, and no one dared to treat him as a servant again. As he entered and exited, all the Hus would treat him with respect, and ever since that night, Xiang Shu's attitude towards him had improved as well. Che Lufeng had almost completely recovered and could now ride a horse. On an ordinary day, Xiang Shu would occasionally take him out for a stroll. Chen Xing had followed along on a few occasions, but he didn't like moving about in the cold, and patients would come see him once in a while, so he didn't join them afterwards. Che Lufeng was very interested in the world of the Han people after all. Not only did he learn a bit of the Han language, but he would also pester Chen Xing to ask all sorts of questions, and his words seemed a little covetous as well, which made Chen Xing feel a little uncomfortable. "Teach me how to write Shulakong's name with Han words ba?" Che Lufeng asked. Chen Xing thought, "Why don't you learn how to write your own name?" The autumn close festival arrived. This was an annual grand festival of the Hus beyond the Great Wall. After the 15th of October, the prairie would begin its winter. On this day, all the Hus would sing and dance, slaughter lambs and drink wine, as well as begin to prepare for many winter Tibetan activities. Chen Xing learned quite a bit of the Ruran, Xiongnu and Tile languages, so he roughly knew that the first snow was supposed to come in late September or early October, but this year's snow never fell, and the Akales tribe never came either. If the Akales tribe didn't come, Chen Xing would have no way of confirming the location on the map. Once the snowfall turned heavy, it would be even more difficult to traverse through the path that leads to the north, so he would have to wait until spring. As time went by, Chen Xing couldn't help but feel anxious. After today, Xiang Shu was still drinking tea in his tent. "If they still haven't come, I'll send some people out to the north to find them." After Xiang Shu returned, he changed into the king's robe worn by the great Chanyu. His attire was extremely gorgeous, and he wore a feather crown on his head with 3 feathers inserted into it. His martial robe was embroidered with the deity insignia of the 16 Hus, and it looked rather grand. After observing him for a long time, Chen Xing discovered that Xiang Shu did have work to do too. The position of Great Chanyu was unlike that of an emperor. He rarely involved himself with the internal affairs of the Hu tribes. Instead, he was more involved in mediating disputes, dividing up responsibilities, and acting as a symbol of the ancient covenant. When he was busy, he would be very busy, and he would often have to listen to the elders of each tribe lament all their grievances while denouncing and criticizing one another. After dealing with his affairs, he would become very idle when he was free and would often have nothing to do for the entire day, so he and Chen Xing would just stare at each other in the tent. Without snow, Xiang Shu said, "We won't be able to ski in late autumn this year. Can you stop frowning all the time?" Chen Xing thought, "After the end of this year, I'll only have 3 years left to live. Why don't you tell me if I should frown or not?" End chapter. Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 30. Autumn Close. Alas, worrying too much wouldn't do anyone good. Chen Xing had liked going to festivals the most during his childhood, but sadly, he had been taken to remote mountains back then. He naturally wanted to have fun after being isolated for so many years. Then, Chen Xing said, "Do you remember saying that as long as I cured Che Lufeng, you would do anything? You finally brought this up." Xiang Shu said, "I've been waiting for you to say this sentence for quite some time. You want me to be your protector, right? Since I have promised, I will naturally keep my word." Chen Xing, who didn't think Xiang Shu would accept in such a straightforward manner, was totally surprised. "Xiang Shu, I've been thinking about what you said these days." Chen Xing, "Hey, sober up, that's not what I want. What kind of person do you think I am? Is there any meaning in forcing you to be my protector when your heart is unwilling?" It was Xiang Shu's turn to be surprised. He frowned as he looked at Chen Xing with eyes full of suspicion. Chen Xing smiled and spoke, "Take me to tomorrow's autumn close festival and let's have fun, okay?" Xiang Shu fixed his gaze at Chen Xing. After staying silent for a long time, he finally replied, "All right." On the day of the Autumn Close Festival, an unprecedented grand event was held in Chi Chuan. After stacking their good wine, beef and mutton in a cleared-out, vacant area, all of the tribes set up a long table for people to eat and drink. The 16 Hus hosted nearly 10 venues, with horse galloping, equestrian archery, wrestling, bull taming, and soon, in short, it was a rowdy party. Chen Xing, cheering as soon as he saw such a lively scene, went to the side of the venue teeming with people while Xiang Shu was preparing the shooting arrow ceremony as a way to worship heaven. Chen Xing wandered around for a long time. He cheered loudly at the lively wrestling venue and went to gamble with some Hus using his medical funds. Winning a lot, he then bought a wine-colored pony from some Xian news and rode all over the place. "Divine Doctor!" A tile youth who had been searching for him for half a day hurriedly called. "The great Chanyu is looking for you. Quickly go to the platform." "Xiang Shu!" Chen Xing shouted. "What do you think of the horse I just bought?" Many people had already gathered in front of the platform at that time. Chen Xing led the horse and went over. Xiang Shu, who stood on the high platform wielding a jade bow in his hand, was dressed in a set of tile armor made of pure gold that wrapped and emphasized his beautiful chest and his attractive, neat abdominal muscles. He said with a face full of anger, "You were the one saying you wanted me to take you out to play, but you vanished first thing in the morning." Chen Xing smiled as he looked at Xiang Shu, who stood tall on the platform. When he leaned slightly sideways, he truly looked like a jade tree facing the wind. He racked his brain for a while, but out of all the poems, books, and writings he had learned all his life, none had the proper words to describe him with. "Here comes a gentleman, who is as beautiful as flowers." As he approached Xiang Shu, Chen Xing felt his heart was beating violently to the point he became a little breathless. Yet even though his heart was like a raging sea, he still pretended to have a calm, smiling expression on the surface. "What?" Xiang Shu raised his eyebrows in confusion and questioned him. Chen Xing jumped onto the stage and helped Xiang Shu fix his armor. "I'm praising your beauty," Chen Xing said. "You Hu people really are unromantic." When Chen Xing reached the edge of the platform, the people below began to whistle. Xiang Shu then pointed his finger toward the back, motioning for Chen Xing to move a bit and watch from the rear. "Che Lufeng, also going up the platform, shouted, "Shall we start?" After receiving Xiang Shu's signal, Che Lufeng started ordering people, and soon enough, the Ruran trumpeters around the platform blew their horns one after another. The Hu people in the entire Chi Le covenant immediately stopped what they were doing and rushed toward the central platform all at once. Che Lufeng brought over a pair of wild geese, which were tied together with a red string around their necks, with a palm-sized golden gong hanging in the center of the connecting rope. Chen Xing said, "What are you going to do?" With a jade bow in hand, Xiang Shu said in a deep voice, "Keep your eyes wide open." Chen Xing, "One arrow, two birds? Don't be can you even hit it? What if you miss?" Xiang Shu, "I would lose my face if I did." Chen Xing, "No, even if it hit, what mistake did the geese do? The geese are innocent." Xiang Shu, using tile language, announced the beginning of the autumn close festival in a clear voice, yet out of hundreds of thousands of densely packed people below the platform, none of them cheered. Che Lufeng shouted, "Go!" as he released his hands to set the geese free. The geese cried out simultaneously as they spread their wings and flew toward the horizon. In just a moment, the geese, which had initially been pulling one another, began to fly in circles. Not long after that, they were finally able to synchronize their movements and quickly became a small black spot. The 300,000 people down the platform held their breath seeing Xiang Shu slowly drawing his longbow. Chen Xing, stunned, merely thought, "Do you really have the ability to do that?" After turning around a full circle, Xiang Shu immediately pulled the bow into a full moon arc, borrowing the force of the rotation, he titled the longbow toward the sky. Whoosh, 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 3 arrows were then fired in succession. That day in Chang'an City, Xiang Shu had been able to shoot the yin-yang mirrors in Feng Qianyi's hands from a distance of 100 steps. That itself could already be considered magical, but it never crossed Chen Xing's mind that he would actually try shooting a golden gong in the air with an arrow. As the geese flew higher, Xiang Shu released the last arrow. The first arrow hit, breaking the red rope and making the golden gong fall from the sky. The second arrow hit, and a bang sound echoed. Another bang and the third arrow also hit the mark. The last arrow then caught up, it bore through the gong with a force that shook up the surrounding. Suddenly, an earth-shattering cheer coming from the Hus resounded on the field, seemingly able to shake even the sky. Xiang Shu put down his bow. The gathering below reached its climax, with the atmosphere getting a little bit out of control. Be it man or woman, young or old, they all sang and danced merrily just like a tide that moved in all directions. Che Lufeng laughed out loud and grabbed Xiang Shu's hand. Xiang Shu, throwing the jade bow, beckoned for Chen Xing to come, he grabbed his wrist, and the 3 men ran off the platform. Good wine and delicacies were all over the place. Chen Xing got pushed around when people began snatching for wine, he had already drunk a lot before, and the strength of the wine made him a little dizzy. Che Lufeng shouted something, but Xiang Shu said, "Drink less. I don't want to carry you back." "It doesn't matter." Chen Xing yelled. Xiang Shu cleared out the crowd. Che Lufeng handed Chen Xing another bowl of wine, but Xiang Shu took and drank it instead. Chen Xing said, "Che Lufeng, you're still not well, drink less." Someone handed Che Lufeng another wine, but Xiang Shu leaned on the table and took it again, drinking it until the last drop on his behalf this time. The Hus was in a big uproar. Che Lufeng, laughing so loud, pressed Xiang Shu down on the table before bowing his head with the intention to kiss him. Chen Xing. The crowd got even more excited thanks to that, laughing one after the other. Xiang Shu raised his hand to resist, and before Che Lufeng could manage to kiss his lips, he lifted his foot and kicked Che Lufeng aside. "Get lost!" Chen Xing had also laughed along, but for some reason, he felt a slight, indescribable pain in his heart, it was as if it had been squeezed, as though his drunkenness had made him unable to breathe. Che Lufeng, who was lying on the ground, yelled out "Aya!" again and again. Afraid that he had accidentally kicked his wound, Xiang Shu rushed forward to examine him. Chen Xing hurriedly said, "Let me see." But Che Lufeng just smiled and pushed Chen Xing away. Shouting in Ruran language that he wanted to wrestle with Xiang Shu, he thus bounced up and stood astride behind him, only for Xiang Shu to grab him instead. Although Xiang Shu disliked his nonsense, he didn't want to fight him, he just waved his hand, wanting to leave, but Che Lufeng stopped him. "Shulukong!" Che Lufeng smiled as he shouted. "I want to challenge you. If I win, I'll become the great Chanyu. You fight me with one hand." The Ruran youngsters all shouted in unison, "Fight! Fight! Fight!" Xiang Shu sneered and simply put one hand behind his back. The field was immediately surrounded by people that obscured Chen Xing's view. Chen Xing put down his bowl. As he heard the cheers coming from inside the circle, he felt a sense of loneliness that came abruptly and seemed to follow him relentlessly. He turned away from the table, walked out of the crowd, and went to the southern end of Chi Chuan. "What's wrong with me?" Chen Xing felt baffled as a heavy feeling suddenly seized him. A dark color covered the once blue sky, as if signaling that a snowstorm was coming. He climbed up the haystack and sat down quietly, thinking that he had never felt so melancholy as he was now. "Is this homesickness? But, where is my home?" Chen Xing, sinking inside the haystack, just lay down with a straw in his mouth and gazed at the grey sky. But then, he suddenly heard the loud cries of the Hus. Chen Xing felt a little irritated, and the original lively scene suddenly became dull. When he recalled the sight of Xiang Shu's valiant and formidable appearance, he became slightly unhappy as if he was robbed of his own possessions. His heart was in utter chaos, the feelings all tangled into a mess. As the shouts grew nearer and nearer, Chen Xing became even more aggravated. He sat up and shouted, "So noisy! What are you up to?" He saw a group of on-duty guards ran toward the prairie and made a fan shape as they shouted loudly. Chen Xing, whose thought was interrupted by this unforeseen event, looked around in confusion. He jumped down the haystack and rode to the center of the encirclement on his little colt. There, dozens of Ruran cavalry surrounded a person. The visitor, dressed in a black cloak with a face covered with some linen, was holding a long cudgel as they warily looked at the cavalry. Chen Xing, with his still butchered Ruran language, thus asked, "Who's that?" Almost everyone in Chi Chuan knew him. They made room a bit when they saw Chen Xing coming. But as soon as the unexpected visitor saw Chen Xing, they called out, "Tianqi!" The visitor took off their mask and hood, showing his bright eyes, red lips, and white teeth. He said with a smile, "I've found you at last. Tuibayan." Chen Xing didn't expect he would be able to meet Tuibayan here. He immediately dismounted his horse and ran over quickly. Tuibayan also got off his horse, laughed heartily, and embraced Chen Xing. "I heard that the great Chanyu took you back here to Chi Chuan," Tuibayan said. "I asked for His Majesty's permission to come here and find you." Chen Xing hurriedly motioned to the crowd that this was his friend. The Ruran cavalry's faces quickly changed when they heard the words. They saluted and left one after another. Celebrating the Autumn Close Festival. Tuibayan looked around. The little discontent in Chen Xing's heart was now swept away by the arrival of Tuibayan. Once again seeing a friend, he was now filled with joy. He laughed and said, "Yes, why did you travel so far without sending any letters first? Are you alone?" Tuibayan nodded, and putting his hand on Chen Xing's shoulder, he led his horse slowly towards Chi Chuan while asking, "How are you doing? They respected you so deeply, is it because of the great Chanyu?" "Him." Chen Xing sneered, gave him a rough sketch of what had happened these past few days, then asked, "Should I get someone call Xiang Shu?" Tuibayan felt a little worried. He looked at the distance, then back at Chen Xing. "How is the court?" Chen Xing asked again, "Is there anything I can do for you?" Tuibayan brought news regarding the Central Plains. Actually, there was nothing special. After Xiang Shu and Chen Xing left, Fu Jian returned to Viang Palace, and the drought fiends scurried away in confusion. The almost destroyed Viang Palace nearly made Fu Jian vomit up blood. He had to rebuild it as soon as possible. Murong Chong stayed overnight in the palace, and in the end, he was persuaded by Fu Jian to not come and make trouble with Xiang Shu for the time being. With only one condition: arrest Feng Qianjun and hand him over to Murong's family to be taken care of. From what Fu Jian and the rest of the civil and martial officials understood, it was quite clear that Murong's family now held a big grudge against Xiang Shu. The only reason they didn't push the issue with Xiang Shu was just because they feared the ancient covenant behind him. After all, every single who had all been in a you kill me I kill you mode for so many years, fighting and killing each other in a never-ending cycle. After entering the pass, they still held on to much animosity and deep hatred. Knowing that Xiang Shu had such a big power behind him, Fu Jian's only hope was only to try calming things down for now. They would get a chance to fix things later. But still, in order to preserve Murong Chong's face, and because Princess King He's death was shady and couldn't be explained to the whole world, Fu Jian issued an arrest warrant to hunt Feng Qianjun down. He already left, Chen Xing said. I know, Tuoba Yan answered. Later, I asked His Majesty for a writ of amnesty. At that time, the one who did it was the great Chan Yu, and the one who plotted it was the Feng's family, but it had nothing to do with you. I also already informed Murong Chong's side, you can rest assured. Chen Xing was slightly confused and just nodded his head, thanking him. Tuoba Yan spoke, I said that I wished to bring you back, and His Majesty told me to come and talk to you myself. Where to? Chen Xing asked. Back to Chang'an. Tuoba Yan said, don't you want to go back? With me, nobody would dare trouble you. Chen Xing suddenly understood, and he laughed. Tuoba Yan lowered his head slightly and looked at him seriously. With the space between his eyebrows showing his youthful spirit, Chen Xing felt he was very cute. Have a drink. Chen Xing said, they're celebrating a holiday. The wine is delicious. Good. Tuoba Yan quickly spoke, I haven't been to the Autumn Clothes Festival for a long time. Chen Xing took Tuoba Yan back to the venue. After drinking, all tribes had started to trip over and fall down, talking about love and speaking in endearments. Other than the autumn harvest, the Autumn Clothes Festival also served as a means for those bold young men and women to love each other. The Hu men began to chase after the women, doing things they dared not do normally and saying things they dared not say normally. The atmosphere was really quite charming at times. Standing in front of a table full of wine, the 10,000 flirtatious feelings under Chi Le Chuan could truly be felt. Chen Xing took some wine and gave it to Tuoba Yan to drink. Contrary to his expectations, Tuoba Yan had good tolerance. Carrying the wine jar, he went to the riverside, and under a tree, he first drank half a jar, then looked at Chen Xing. His face was red. Tianqi, Tuoba Yan said, I have something to say to you. Since that day in the royal study, when His Majesty mentioned that, following that event, I've been thinking for a long time. Chen Xing naturally understood what Tuoba Yan truly meant. Else, why would he still chase him all the way to Chi Le Chuan even after they had left Chang'an? It was nothing much if he had only wanted to send word from Fu Jian, but the first sentence he said after meeting him was I came to find you, and not anything else. This truly touched Chen Xing's heart. I know what you're trying to say. Chen Xing laughed, come, say it. Chen Xing took the initiative to take Tuoba Yan's wine jar and drink it. Tuoba Yan was stunned by Chen Xing. You're really beautiful, Tuoba Yan said with a smile. Tianqi, come home with me, ba. I've always wanted to get married to someone like you. Just say the word, and I will promise you anything. Whatever you ask me to do, I will do it. Tuoba Xiang, Chen Xing sighed and looked straight into Tuoba Yan's eyes. Thank you for coming from 1,000 miles away for me. When leaving Chang'an, there's one thing I forgot. That is, to return this to you." Then, Chen Xing poured a bit of honey wine on the top of his hand, took off the ring that was given to him by Tui Yan, and then handed it out to him. Tui Yan was silent. Chen Xing took his hand and put the ring in the palm of his hand. "All right," Tui Yan said. "Give it to someone else ba," Chen Xing said. "Give it to a person which, as soon as you see them, makes you think that in all your life, if it's not them, there won't be anybody else." "You are that person," Tui Yan said. "No," Chen Xing said with a smile, "I'm not. I just happen to be an individual that is in line with the one in your mind, the person you feel is right and the one you think you should marry, nothing more." Tui Yan was puzzled and looked at Chen Xing, his eyebrows furrowing slightly. Chen Xing, with a touch of melancholy, continued, "You don't understand. You ought to give this ring to that one person who makes your heart pound uncontrollably whenever you see them, and you will always try to find more reasons to talk to them. When you see them with someone else, you will feel uncomfortable. When you see them sad, you won't be able to bear it. When they smile at you, you will feel very happy and awfully cheerful. Instead of being with someone else, everyone thinks you and them should get married. They will also fit all of the characteristics of the person you want to spend your entire life with. Therefore, you should be together with them, because the one who is destined to be with you, is exactly them." Chen Xing raised his eyebrows and smiled. At that moment, he suddenly understood the odd feeling that was pressing down on his heart. "I don't understand," Tui Yan was a little sad, his eyebrows now tightly furrowed. Chen Xing explained, "It doesn't matter. Just promise you will always remember what I said. One day, you will probably understand." Tui Yan didn't overstep his limit. Between the two men, there were only breathing sounds, and nobody spoke any more. At last, Tui Yan said, "Okay. Shall I walk you back?" Chen Xing spoke again. "For the time being, I don't want to return yet. Xiang Shu had promised me. It would be better if you don't let the Rurans see him because otherwise, there would be a murder case." Suddenly, Xiang Shu's voice could be heard from behind a tree. Chen Xing was startled and furious. "You eavesdropped on our conversation." As a man who practiced martial arts, Tui Yan seemed to have long known that Xiang Shu was hiding behind a tree, stating, "Great Chanyu, sorry to have disturbed you." "What now?" Chen Xing said, "You treat your guests either by making them clean the room or by murdering them. Does the Chi Le covenant still have any etiquette left?" The Tui clan, on behalf of the country, once captured several thousand Rurans, making them slaves. Xiang Shu came out from behind a tree. He had already changed back into his king's robe. He told Chen Xing, "The Rurans have already become drunk. If they know who he is, I can't say for sure, but they may just draw a knife to stab your boyfriend. Forgive me if I am unable to stop them then." "It doesn't matter," Tui Yan put on the ring and said to Chen Xing, "Knowing that you're safe and sound, I will leave now." "Hold on," Chen Xing said, "stay here for a few days ba, you've come a long way. Go back and tell Jian Tou," Xiang Shu told Tui Yan, "Guowang doesn't have any time to send anything to him these days, and also tell him to behave himself. If I ever hear of any turmoil happening in the Central Plains again, who knows, if he can't even guard his own capital, I wouldn't mind putting those Xianbei in order for him." Tui Yan replied, "I'll certainly bring word to him." With that, he got on his horse and galloped away. Chen Xing ran out a few steps, intending to stop him, but Xiang Shu caught hold of his arm. "Xiang Shu, you let me go!" "Tui Yan!" shouted Chen Xing. Tui Yan looked back at Chen Xing, and he suddenly smiled. There was a hint of bitterness in that smile, but it was covered up very well, and again, he shouted at him. "Tianqi!" Tui Yan shouted, "Until we meet again." Chen Xing could only sigh. He shook off Xiang Shu's arm and glared at him. Xiang Shu knitted his brows, "I only went back to change my clothes." Where did you run to? Chen Xing, how could you eavesdrop on us? Xiang Shu, I was only passing by and heard you two drinking under a tree. Gle Chuan is my territory, I can be anywhere I want. Who gave you the guts to ask that? Chen Xing, you. Chen Xing walked ahead while practically spitting anger, and Xiang Shu immediately followed him, keeping the right distance. With that, the two men went back to Autumn Clothes Festival's venue. Xiang Shu snarled, you dare vent your anger on this great Chan Yu. Chen Xing, what? Want to hit me again? Bring it. Unexpectedly, Xiang Shu stopped, scrutinized Chen Xing, and frowned, what's wrong with you? Why are you this angry? If you don't want to stay, just get lost. Follow Tuobayan back to Chang'an. Chen Xing took a deep breath, he was at his wit's end. He pushed Xiang Shu forward. Xiang Shu didn't even budge. Chen Xing was angry, shouting, bastard! You damn bastard! He spoke while leaning on one side, ramming his shoulder against Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu was still like a stone rooted deep in the ground. He looked at him with a sarcastic face and pushed him aside using no real effort. Chen Xing, who was pushed aside, stumbled, and nearly fell to the ground. Xiang Shu grabbed his wrist once again. Chen Xing immediately felt pain and screamed, Aya, Aya. Right at the time when Xiang Shu was about to hit him, a shout came from nearby. It was Che Lufeng. He was drunk, but his eyes were red, ignited with fury. Behind him were hundreds of Ruran cavalry, each orderly dressed in armor. Where is Xian Bei's Tuoba clan? Che Lufeng said, Divine Doctor. Hand over your friend. End chapter.